$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Super NES podcast, episode 153 this time. I'm Greg, and he is Joe.
Hi.
And we are looking at another of Joe's picks this time around. Once again, another Japanese-only game. Joe really seems to be enjoying trying to find these obscure Japanese titles for us to look at. So, which game did you want us to look at this time, Joe?
I picked DoReMi Fantasy, Milon's heart-pounding adventure.
AKA Doki Doki Adventure. I've also seen it printed that way as well.
Yeah.
So, depending on how you want to translate it, because of course there's always several ways to translate something from Japanese to English. So, what made you want to look at this game, Joe? Being Japanese only, I'm guessing you don't have any history with it. But
No, I have no history with. I mean, I have history with the original Milon's Castle on the NES, but it was actually a screenshot. I can't remember. I think it was games that you didn't know had sequels on the Super Nintendo. This was the article I was reading, and it had one screenshot of this game. And that was all I needed. I was like, this is a beautiful game. Just by the screenshot, I could tell how beautiful the game was. And I was like, I want to see how it is. And what better way to do that than to, put it up for nomination here on the podcast. Then I have to play it, right?
Right. Well, Not only was this a sequel, this was also actually a franchise, which I actually had no idea actually existed. So
yeah, that's interesting news right there.
This goes deeper than I'd realized. So we're just gonna call this a Milon's I'm just gonna call it Milon's Adventure, this podcast, just to give it a simpler form of the title to make life easier. So as Joe mentioned, and as the title suggests, this is the sequel to Milon's Secret Castle, which was an original NES platforming / puzzle game. So this game, like the original, was developed and published by Hudson Soft. This came out in Japan only back in March of 1996. As mentioned before, the stayed in Japan only. However, very curiously, the game was picked to be included for release on the Wii Virtual Console in North America and Europe in 2008. So the game was available for several years in that format, although it was untranslated. They just stuck the game on there. So, some of you might have played it back then. I know the Virtual Console servers are shut down by now. I never had a Wii or a Wii U. If you downloaded the game, can you still play it?
Well, I mean, there's ways to get games for those consoles, but no, if you just vanilla hook it up to a internet connection, you would not be able to get them.
Well, no, I meant if you had the game on your hard drive still, could you play it that way?
Oh, yeah. As long as it's already downloaded on the hard drive, you're fine. And I mean, if you have a modded Wii, you can get the whatever file it is very easily online, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. All right. So, so I mentioned before this is part of a franchise. I remember playing Milon's Secret Castle for the NES as a kid. I wasn't really that impressed by it.
Right.
Apparently nobody else was too, because the reviews of the game are pretty bad.
It's true.
There is, however, a Game Boy port of that game that came out the following year in 1986. That's apparently much better. No, I'm sorry. Not 1986. That was the original NES version. The Game Boy version came out several years later. They made several changes to the Game Boy version to improve it, such as giving you a password feature and making bosses much easier to beat. So, it's apparently a much better version of the game. So, and the and the game also got re-released again for the DS like several years ago. So there's several ways to play it. To play if you want to. So
Cool.
there was also so this game was also included as part of the Hudson Best Collection Volume 3 Action Collection for the Game Boy Advance 2005, which is Japan only. The next really new game in the Milon franchise was a game called Milon no Hojizora Subon, which was a puzzle game only for phones.
Okay.
Japan played Japan 2005. It did well enough apparently, like for getting a sequel the following year, Milon no Hojizora Subon Puzzle Kamikoigu, which also came out the following year in Japan. Again, phone. That one was DS.
Oh, okay.
And again, both those games were Japan only. So this is obviously a franchise that was much popular in Japan than it was here in the States.
Yeah.
Because the only game we ever saw over here was Milon Secret Castle. But this game is similar in some ways to the original, and then in many other ways, not entirely at all similar to the original. So, I mean, like, you're still controlling somebody named Milon. You're still controlling the game's still a platformer at heart. You're still going through a whole bunch of stages. There's still boss fights to do. There's still various stages, like the stages to go through. That's pretty much like the similarities end. I was trying to think of a good way to describe the game. Somebody on YouTube kind of did me a favor by saying the game is kind of like if Zelda, Bubble Bobble, Mario World, and Kirby all got together and Kirby DNA for a baby.
Right.
So that's not a bad way of describing it, actually.
No, not bad at all.
So I will give credit to that person because there's elements. There's definitely elements of all those games present here. So, So this is in some ways kind of a hard platformer to describe. So Joe, I'll give you the possible challenge of trying to describe this game in basic terms.
I mean, it's your typical side scroller. It's a side scrolling platformer where you blow bubbles to encapsulate the enemies to clear them out of your way, or you can jump on their head a la Mario. You get multiple power-ups. You can get bubblegum, which can save you if you fall into a pit, which, by the way, thinking of the bubblegum and being able to come out of the pit, the animations that they have for Milon are very good in this game. You get winged boots that will help you extend your jump. I didn't notice if it makes you jump higher or anything like that, but it makes you a little more floaty, so it gives you more, at least, distance.
Yeah, I kind of thought of it as being like Peach's gliding ability, like Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah. It definitely became useful as you went through the levels, which is a nice little thing. I felt like they programmed it and kind of maybe it was one of those things where they realized maybe we should kind of give them a little bit of help here. I can't recall how many levels, but the levels that stuck out to me were there's your typical ice and fire levels that you get in almost every platformer. There's a toy level, a food level, and then you kind of start off in like a forestry type level. You could potentially beat this game in one run through. It's challenging, but it's not overly difficult, which was nice. All the bosses. Sorry.
I'm sorry, you guys. I just wanted to add on before we got too far ahead. There's actually 7 worlds in this game, altogether.
Okay.
Not counting the mini games, which we'll get to here in a bit.
Yep.
But and most playthroughs of this game online are about 3 hours.
Yeah. And the bosses fit the levels, which is nice. I really enjoyed the music of this game. Not that it so much fit the level that it was in, but in some cases it just happened to work out that way. But it really felt like they kind of made the music and then had built the levels, and then we're like, okay, well, we have to fit the music in here and whatnot, and kind of did it that way. But I love the varied levels, especially the I think it was the food level where you're bouncing around. You got like birthday cake candles and like some pumpkin enemies. You can jump onto champagne bottles, the cork will shoot you through the next part of the level. There was some very nice mechanics and different visuals. The cutscenes alone, when this game started up, I was amazed at the beautiful cutscenes. But that all being said, this game should be as beautiful as it is. It should sound as wonderful as it does, and it should play as wonderful as it does. As for this was a very late Famicom release in 1996, which I did not realize when I picked this game.
Yep.
So I played through most of this game not realizing that, well, by this time the N64 was out. This should be a, very good platformer. So
yeah, I mean, Hudson Soft was certainly no slouches to making good games. I mean, like Kirby. I mean, like I've said. So I mean, they had some top people working on this. The composer, for example, was Jun Chikumo. I think it's pronounced like Chikuma, who is well known for a whole battery of games that she did the music for, including the Bomberman series.
Oh, okay.
So
hence why Bomberman makes an appearance in this game. Maybe.
Well, they are both Hudson Soft properties, so
yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, they would be the first one to do that. Capcom did that a long time ago, like of their cameos,
right?
Like in their games. So, so definitely, I agree with, I agree with almost everything that you said. Like at first glance, you may be turned away from this game because it is very cutesy looking. But I mean, like, it is cute to a degree. The difficulty of this game, I think, is, like, just right. It's not, like, the most difficult platformer game out there, so if you're looking for a challenge, you might not be challenged enough by this one. It's also a bit too hard for kids, I think. Kind of strange considering how cutesy the game looks.
Right.
But then again, you have to remember, this is a Japanese-only game. I mean, the Japanese expect to, the stereotype is that oftentimes Japanese versions of the games are harder than the US counterparts, which is often true. So, right. I mean, for a game that stays in Japan only, it makes sense it's going to be like a hard game. But I mean, in Japan, this game might have been aimed toward kids. There's a plot in this game which is told surprisingly enough, by cutscenes every now and then as you go through the game. So. It's kind of a silly, typical fantasy plot. You're basically playing as Milon, as mentioned before. There's been an evil force who's to attack the area. His friend, the fairy Aeolus, has been captured. So he's trying to rescue. He's trying to rescue her and also restore all the music. Like this evil wizard, like his name, like Amon. So. We also met, like Mario also, there's also musical notes you can pick up in the game. 100 of those musical notes give you like extra life. So, there's that Mario/coin element that every platformer game seems like has to have in it for some reason.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, like we trade. The ROM translated several years ago. We played a translated version of the game.
Yep.
It helps with the plot. That said, by no means is necessary to include. Like to enjoy this because, like I said before, the plot is very, very basic. You play this game Japanese only, like on the Wii Virtual Console, and console like be fine with it.
Yeah, I was horrible. I even sent you the ROM with the English translation, which is the same ROM I used, and yet I skipped all those cutscenes because I was like, I don't care about the story. I just want to play the game. So yeah. Because the whole game really does like scream cuteness because it has that what's that Japanese word for like the little cartoon deformity characters like chibi? Chibi,
like
yeah.
That. Yeah. To me, this game has a very chibi look to it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it as like a cute aesthetic. I just noticed like how clean the game looked. Like to me,
the graphics are gorgeous.
It looks super polished and everything else. So it's like,
the graphics are gorgeous.
You're right. It does come off cutesy, but to me, it just seemed like, oh, these are some really nice, clean, super enlarged sprites that you normally don't get, from a Super Nintendo game, and then come to find out, being from 1996, like there's a reason why it looks as good as it does.
Yeah, because basically, like, graphics, especially for Super NES games, usually tend to fall into like 3 different categories. You have like the parallax scrolling in the background. You have the actual sprites, sprites and level design itself. Then you also have the colors used. And many games nail 2 of those, but 2 of those 3, but can't nail all 3. This game actually does like all 3 perfectly. All of it's like top-notch effort here. So it's like the game's bright, it's colorful, everything's well defined. There's a good monster design. Milon looks adorable. The little like half asleep extra life Milon at the top of the screen is adorable looking. Just the overall graphics in this game are just like simply amazing. And like you said, like you said, 96. Between being a late game and having an experienced team working on it, like you almost kind of expect it.
Yeah. Did you happen to at any point let Milon stay idle for a bit?
Oh yeah, this little
animations pulling the hat over his head. So I had not done that, and during one of my playthroughs, my cat decided to step on my keyboard to get into the way of my computer monitor and sped up the emulation. So in doing so, I was trying to figure out what she had pressed so that I could slow back down the emulation so I could play. And in doing so, I am watching Milon, continue to pull his hat over his head and do all the different idle animations in very fast speed. But I was impressed. I didn't expect that, and nor would I have sat there long enough to let him do those, animations. So I was actually kind of glad that my cat decided to step on my keyboard.
Yeah, I did see that. Because there are several other games that do that, but it's always kind of like a pleasant surprise when you find a game that does. My personal favorite, Idle Animation, again, happens to be a Super NES game, was actually like Bugsby, because after a while he'll actually face you and tap on the screen.
Oh, nice. Nice.
But because there's the whole moving the fist around back and forth like a tapping on the screen animation, while at the same time you hear like a very like monitor sound like tap tap tap.
Nice.
So,
that's cool.
That was always my favorite because it's one thing that did give me difficulty, because I assume it was in the manual, but the manual was not translated, obviously, like over here in the States.
Right.
That I actually go online to find out how to get around this. So I'm going to mention this now as a hint to anybody who decides to play this game. If you hold down the attack button, Milon gets mad and does like a supercharge attack.
Oh, never even noticed that.
We needed one area to get past a wall. You have to use it to burst down.
Okay.
You have to use it to bust down the wall. How'd you get past that then?
I used some of the passwords to skip around because I was like, oh, it's great. It's got a password system, and it's only 4 numbers that you need to put in. So I didn't. It's not that I didn't want to put in the time. It's I didn't want to spend too much time on one level, or
Sure,
when I play these games,
so.
This is why I stay away from like collectathon games and everything else, because I'm one of those people like, if there's a certain amount of things I got to do within a certain level, I'm like tedious and I take my time. And platformers are like I have to grab every note. Not that I need to, but I have to because that's who I am. So so I knew that it would take a while to play through this game. So that's why I was like, okay, well I played this like the 1-1 part of the world. So that now I'll use passwords to skip to like the next world and so on and so forth. So this way I can see the entire game and enjoy it and not bog myself down, or I would only be able to talk about probably the first 2 worlds.
Sure, makes sense. I use YouTube sometimes to help with games that games I did not get all the way through.
Right.
I did get all the way through this because like we said, it's not the most difficult game in the world.
Right.
So, save states help.
Yep.
So, but there's one area one area where you can see the goal sign, but there's like a wall above you, and it's not clear how to bust through that to get up there to exit. So you have to hold down the attack button. And Milon does this like really like cute little like holding his breath and getting angry animation. and then all of a sudden like shoots out bubbles like in all directions.
That's great.
It's not long range. But that's how you actually have the player do the that's how you like bust through the wall to advance.
Huh.
So
Nice.
so anyway, I mentioned that there because it's not obvious. The game doesn't tell you it's there. So unless you actually knew it or read the manual, like you wouldn't know about that attack ability.
Right.
But anyway, so controls for this game are pretty good. You need a platform with like tight controllers, and no game's ever going to be as good for controls, I think, as like the Mario games. But having said that, the controls in this game are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I felt Milon was a bit slippery at times, but it wasn't something that was hard to get a grip on. You play it, just through that first level. Like, you can feel the difference between, say, him and Mario. But it's also something that you can control. It's not, like you're on ice, like some games.
But there is actually an ice world in this game, isn't there, I thought?
Yes, there is an ice world.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the game just felt natural in my hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. So Joe already mentioned the password feature. Like, it is like a very simple password feature. It's really not as it's really like not needed anymore if you play it through emulation. But if you play it either on the virtual console or on cart, because there are repos of this available, which we'll get to here toward the end.
Yep.
But you might want those passwords. So we touched upon the music earlier, I think, already. Knowing when experienced composer did the soundtrack makes sense. Like, why it makes sense now. Like, why it's so good. But it really is a very it really is a very like good soundtrack. It fits the game very well. Platformers and shooters are the games that most need great music, I think, because those games are more limited or are like more limited in gameplay style. So you really need something to keep you pumped or whatever as you go through the game. So, and this game delivers a great soundtrack, better than I expected.
Yeah, this game in general surprised me. And like I said, I saw it in a screenshot and had no expectations going in. So, the game just exceeded everything that I expected.
We probably should talk about the mini games a little bit. There's not much there to say about them. There's like there's like 4 different types of mini games. Like you get to play them every now and then. They give you some rewards.
It's a way.
I
was gonna say it's a way to just get extra lives so that you can make it through the game. You know what I mean?
Sure. There's really only one. There's really like only one sticks out with me. The first person shooting game.
Yes.
Where like moving the crosshairs across the screen, and shoot down enemies. So I know there's others that I'm just drawing a blank in them like right now.
It's funny is that I actually only wrote down. I was like, first person bonus level is probably the best thing in the game. So
yeah.
I mean, there were other bonus levels that give you the ability to get extra lives to get through the game. Like I said, this game is there's a challenge there, but I think it balances itself out with how many extra lives it gives you, and it doesn't when you make a mistake, you die. It's not the game is cheap and takes lives from you.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So probably should mention a couple of things about gameplay that we didn't touch on earlier, like for whatever reason. So I mentioned that he attacks by blowing bubbles. You can also they can also hold down the button for a second, like they get a charge bubble, which is like more effective against like some of the tougher enemies. So also Milon does have a health system. You're probably wondering about this because we forgot to mention it previously. He's not one hit, thank God.
Right.
So he's a no. You can tell his health. There's no health gauge on screen. You tell his health instead by the clothes he has on. So, like the color determines that. If his normal untouched color is green. When he takes a hit, he changes to blue. Takes another hit, he changes to red, and then if he gets hit again, he dies.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a three hit system. So, you're able to regain health by finding overall power ups. Very cute, by the way.
Yeah.
One restores 1 unit of health. Twins restores 2.
Yeah.
So, but there's also some of the other power ups that Milon can also get. For example, like enhances bubble blowing, allow him to be able to shoot further, for example, or increase the number of bubbles you can have on screen at once, which is like very nice power ups. But and besides the winged boots and the bubble gum that Joe mentioned earlier, there's also a key that's required for maze stages. So,
I knew I forgot something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not every stage has it, so
Right,
it's like
right.
So you can go through most of the game being like, okay, what's that empty block there for? Well, it's for key stages. So, so anyway, yeah. So just a very, very competent, very well put together game. Like surprised me just how good that it was. Like I said before, not the most difficult platformer game, but if you can get past the cutesy factor the game has, well, I think it's very cutesy looking, but it's a very like fun, fun, it's very like fun, challenging romp like the game. Like I said before, it just has a whole bunch of elements from like Zelda and Bubble Bobble and Kirby and Mario World like all thrown in together for like a really like very interesting, interestingly well put together game. I thought so. There's really not too much I can nitpick the game about. Like I thought, maybe, I guess the story I really felt like unnecessary. Considering the nature of the game. So, and I thought some of the boss fights, and I actually thought the boss fight difficulty was pretty uneven. Some of the bosses were very easy, and some of them were very difficult.
Yeah.
So, beyond that though, I really can't fault this game too much, except for being somewhat short.
Right.
So just a very good, very good game. So anybody enjoys platformers definitely should check this one out.
Yeah, this is definitely a recommendation for sure.
But before we move on, Joe, you have any final thoughts or anything about the game that you want to say?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much I've covered my love for this game. This was definitely a quote unquote hidden gem. I was not expecting this at all, and it's definitely a game I fell in love with. And at some point, I'm definitely going to go back and go level by level, grabbing every little thing that I possibly can, and enjoying the game 100%. Yeah, I mean, this is highly recommendable. Obviously, I would, recommend emulating it, but as we'll get to, maybe you'll want to pick up a cart, maybe not.
Yeah. So, actually, the repros of this game are actually not that expensive to grab compared to the original Japanese version of the game.
Right.
So, it's probably so if you want to go that route, it should be within your budget. But, so besides the level, so besides the level passwords, there are two hidden passwords. One is the classic sound test password like without listening to all the music and sound effects.
Okay.
So the other one allows you to be able to. The other one is used in conjunction with the level password. If you put this password in first, and then first you start that world powered up.
Oh,
so
okay.
So kind of so you. Put that in first, then you put in the world password, and you start that one with a leg up. So, anyway, so, given how it's been since 2006 since the Milon game came out, probably the franchise is probably dead. I like I've learned never say, you never say never as far as like companies bringing back coming back like franchises. Since all the other Milon games have puzzle elements in them, this one being a pure platform, it kind of makes it the bastard child as it was of the franchise. So maybe that's why it's hard to find information on old Japanese games, especially when those games did not get like a wide scale attention.
Right.
So I don't know why exactly this game is so rare in Japan. I think that I think it's just a case of like Hudson deciding not to make a big print run of it for the reason I mentioned before. This game is very different. This game is very different than the game that came before it. It is a strictly platformer compared to the puzzle elements that the other games in the franchise have. So, or maybe it was just like just all scarfed up and sitting in collectors' houses.
I mean,
and,
again, it's 1996. Like, especially in Japan, by then the Nintendo 64 is out. You know what I mean? The next gen is there. So, I would think that this probably had a low print run. And it probably didn't sell that well because of the fact that it was on the Super Famicom when the N64 was out. And it was, doing gangbusters over there.
Yeah. So, yep, I think that's right. So probably just a combination like those factors. So I mentioned before, this game is available translated. And, as is common with like translated games, people have been available repo carts, which have like a US style label on them and the actual cart in there, so you can just like stick them into your Super NES or your Recon 5 or whatever and play it. So some people have gone one step further and actually made up a box.
Oh,
so,
nice.
No manual as far as I can tell.
Right.
They didn't go that far, but boxes are easy to make up the manuals anyway because it's just like because the printing cost for a box is not that bad,
Right.
compared to what's required like for manual. So a couple of days ago when I was looking on eBay, I found currently available for sale two translated versions, two translated cart only US style carts. Somebody actually made a PAL style translated cart as
nice.
well also. So you actually can get the game translated in PAL format as well. So there's one available on sale, and there's two available cart and box combos that were available for sale. So the asking prices for those varied wildly. So mind you, these are asking prices. So these are actually like live auctions.
Right.
The prices they were asking for was anywhere from $23 to $73. So depending upon what format and if you wanted a box along with that cart. So there were about 20 copies of this game available of the original Japanese release, both cart and CIB. And asking prices again varied wildly. So I found somebody trying to sell the cart only. And mind you, this is all in Japan, so this would also this includes your shipping costs.
Right.
I found somebody asking the cart only. Low price of low price of $120.
Yep.
High price a complete mint condition of the game CIB. Guy was asking $800 for.
Oof.
So definitely a wild range of prices on there.
Yeah.
So several copies of the game have sold recently. On both like translated and also Japanese original. Translated prices sold only those sold prices ranging from $29 to $38. So for game and box. Game only average about $21. So yeah, so you just want to get the game for your collection to play it. It's not that expensive.
Right.
So if you're okay with like a repro and just want to play the English version of the game, it's not that bad. The average selling price for Japanese carts of this game appears to be about $600. So, and there was not a CIB copy of this game that sold recently. So.
Yeah.
But so like I said, very very expensive if you want the Japanese original.
Yeah,
so,
that's crazy.
But yeah, so I mean for $20, like enjoy platformers, this is something definitely worth it. I thought.
Yeah.
You know, like a really competent, really really well put together game. It's a shame it didn't get more attention. You know, had the game come over here in the States, maybe it might have done okay, but again, because of how late it was, I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
So,
you figure it was released 96 there. If you released it, you know, internationally at that time, tack on 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. By then, it's 97. People had moved on to the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, the N64. I don't know how it would have fared over here, to be honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so yes, so I mean, like, you know, it was cool. They made the game available on the Virtual Console, like for the Wii. That's kind of like a surprise, like, oh, it's on there, really? So
Yeah, but it was very lazy by not translating it. They just straight ported it.
but to be fair, as we said, I mean, like, you know, the game doesn't require much, you know, much translation
Right,
anyway. It's
right.
perfectly playable without it anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, and like the cutscenes are very anime-like. It's like, you know, it's very impressive to see that like on the Super NES.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that pretty much covers up this game. Yeah, kind of a I wouldn't go so far as to call it a hidden gem, but it was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next time on the podcast, we're going to look at a game that I saw mentioned by a poster on a Discord group that I belong on. Never heard of this game either. But you know, I enjoy games of this type. So, and Joe's not vetoing it. So we'll take a look at it next time. It is a game called Lock On, which a poster described as being like Pot Wings of Guns. So I'm curious to check it out. It's apparently a sequel to a Genesis game called Air Diver. And that's why the game is known outside North America as Super Air Diver, because it's a sequel to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I enjoy like shooting games. You know, this is more. I'm warning you now, Joe. This is more of a sim game with a third person perspective to it. So, but you know, I like these kinds of games, but you know, like we'll see how you do with it.
Yeah.
So, oh, I did forget to mention like one of the things like about like Milon's what's this game called again? Oh, Milon's Adventure.
Yeah.
I mean the game. I mean, I could not find any reviews of this game when it first came out. Again being Japan only.
Right.
But modern reviews of this game have been like very, very high. But yeah, modern reviews of this game like are very positive. You know, IGN gave it 7.5 out of 10. Nintendo Life gave it 9 out of 10. Eurogamer gave it 8 out of 10. So, yes. So like we're not alone. We're not alone. Like think this is a great game.
Yeah. Yep. Those are scores I definitely expected to hear.
So, but then, alrighty then. If you can read Japanese, the official website is still archived. So you can actually still like read about the game. So, but anyway, I think that's about it. Want to thank you as always for listening to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, game ideas, whatever, feel free to hit us up. You either can do so on Facebook, or you can also send an email directly to the SNES podcast yahoo.com. Joe, how can they reach you if they're so inclined?
You can find me on Twitter at JOESUX30.
Okay. All right. So thank you again, always for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe, and catch you all again soon.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Steampunk time.